those are brave. Thieves essentially are supposed to be brave. You
They're-
can't be a thief if you're not brave. But those
They've
ones
had
have
their
taken,
dose of
have taken it to,
entertainment.
yeah, they've taken it to a whole new level. They even had some tea.
They're lucky.
They're so lucky and used the pastor's car to make 4 trips to and from.
Yeah, they've had a good time.
That's
They've had a
crazy.
good time. Yeah.
But I mean, talking about anybody being brave, you are one brave girl. And I'm so proud and I'm actually very honored to have you here in studio.
Thank you.
Okay, so I want us to start from the time that, the last time we saw you here. And when you left and everything seemed okay. At what point did you discover that actually you had liver cancer?
I was expecting my second daughter.
Okay, so you were
And,
expectant.
yes, I was
Okay.
expectant. And it was just a routine ultrasound. And that's when they saw a lesion, is what they'd term it. But, a lesion could be anything
Yeah.
on the liver, really.
Right.
It could be a hematoma or something that a lot of people are born with.
Yeah.
So my husband's a doctor, and it wasn't a real cause for worry because it was just a small lesion.
Where was it?
It was on the liver.
Okay, on the
Yeah.
liver. All right.
So, but the scan could pick it up during a routine ultrasound, and then from there, I think he has a really good intuition, and something just told him, why don't you just carry out a few blood tests? So he
Right.
did go ahead without telling me to do a few blood tests. And there's something called an AFP detector. I'm sure a lot of people who are watching, they know what an AFP is. It actually
What is that for those who
it's a
do not
blood
know?
test that indicates if you do have cancer.
Okay.
And when it's usually high, that's a mark that there is cancer in the body. And that turned out to be positive for me.
Okay.
So I remember very distinctly, and prior to that, I was having a little pain, but this was towards my 3rd trimester. And I was admitted in hospital just, because, I'm on my 3rd trimester.
Yes.
They're just checking on the baby.
Exactly.
So that's
Just to
when,
be sure
yes,
everything
and
is
that's when
okay.
he did the test. And I still remember, Betty, the fear on his face was paper white. He's never been the same until, touch wood, I could say, until now, that I see my husband smile,
Are you serious?
because the fear of seeing, I think, as a medic, because they know so much about it.
Exactly.
They know to what extent maybe this disease could escalate to. So all that piles up. As a layperson, somehow, when you don't know a lot, you're able to cope with it better.
Yes, yes.
I was told about it, but then
So
I didn't know how to react.
Okay.
Perhaps because I was more focused on my pregnancy.
Yeah. And
And
how far were you in the pregnancy?
I was about 3 months away.
3 months
So this
away.
is actually just the beginning of the 3rd trimester.
okay.
I did go ahead and deliver a beautiful baby girl.
Lovely.
You know,
Yeah,
healthy,
lovely.
lovely. Her name is Zahabia.
Oh, beautiful.
And so she's fine, and just in case everyone was wondering. But then as soon as she was 6 weeks, I had to go for further tests.
But let me ask, before even we get there, here you are, you're expectant. And any mom would be
It
so
didn't register.
excited
Yeah.
to be, to be
It just
expecting
didn't
a
register.
baby.
They were like, it could be cancer, Anjlee, and this and
So
that.
were they saying that to just help you cope with the pregnancy, or did they for sure?
They, I think, were also in a little shock.
Okay.
In terms of maybe they've misdiagnosed because I still have the baby, so they can't really aggressively do tests on me.
Okay.
So it's after the delivery that I had to go in for a CT scan. That's
But
when
at that time, health-wise, were you okay?
I was fine.
Did you feel
There were
anything different? Nothing.
No, just a little pain.
Okay.
But, I probably thought it was a bit of indigestion.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
But
Stomach upset.
there were no symptoms whatsoever.
Okay.
I had no idea. And if you look at it right now, perhaps the tumor had been growing for a year and I had no idea.
Okay.
This is the biggest challenge with cancer, that it is a silent killer. In as much as we are celebrating breast cancer in
This month,
October,
yeah.
it is also the month for liver cancer.
Okay.
And when we look at the prevalence, it's not really, I think, awareness has not really been created about liver cancer, but we do have very high cases of Hep B and Hep C in the country. These result also into cancer. We
Okay.
have liver cirrhosis out of extreme alcohol
intake, yes.
consumption, and that also turns into liver
Into
cancer.
liver cancer. All right.
Regardless of whether it is hepatitis or whether you have liver cirrhosis or liver cancer, all these conditions do require a liver transplant.
Wow.
That's the only way you could say that is a definite cure.
And
And that's I had a
and
liver
that and you had
transplant.
a liver transplant.
Yes.
So I want us to go back. You explain it to us what happened after you after delivery.
Yes.
Here's your baby, beautiful
Yeah,
baby girl.
you're not even thinking about
What
it.
is
You're
going
so
through your
positive
head?
about it,
Yeah.
you know? I couldn't be bothered.
Yeah.
I think I was my
So you were
brain-
concentrating on the
yes,
baby.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, there's so much happening. It's just, you know, you're breastfeeding at 2 in the
Yeah.
morning, at 4 in the morning.
baby is
I don't have time
cranky.
to think about
Yeah.
cancer in my
Okay,
life. I
okay.
don't even know what that is.
Yeah.
You know, until I had to definitely go in after 6 weeks. And when they did a CT scan, that's when I was told, you know, Anjlee, you have liver cancer.
How did you react to that? How was it for you? Did it seem so far-fetched?
Yes.
Uh-huh.
Yes. I didn't feel scared at that time. I think at that time you're still in shock because you are telling yourself, I'm going to be fine.
Yeah.
I mean, this is just something
Something,
small and I'll
yes.
be okay. So the next step was, and my husband registered it. I hadn't registered it totally. I hadn't taken it in. I hadn't broken down. I hadn't cried.
Even at that moment, you did
Yeah.
not break down and you know,
Nothing, Betty, nothing.
Mhm.
I think maybe the pregnancy
Is
hormones
it the
were
shock
still.
of goodness? Can this
No,
happen to me?
I would blame it on the good pregnancy hormones. You know, still you know the after
that's-
hormones.
yeah,
you know,
that
the
you
baby
still
ones.
have.
Yeah.
Oh, those are some of the pictures.
Yes, that's actually when we had done the transplant,
Right.
and my husband had, you know, he had come to see me. That was one of my best friends. I didn't know her, but she was from Mumbai, where I got the transplant done.
Okay.
I'm going to explain more about that particular
Yes.
picture.
Yes.
So I wouldn't comment about that. So when he had already registered the magnitude of the disease I'm
Right.
carrying, I had no idea that this was going to be a really tiring journey for me. Our next stop was Delhi.
What did you think? Did you think you'd just get some sort of
I thought it
medication?
was, yeah,
and
medication,
then-
I'd be
yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Or a small surgery and I'd be
Small
okay.
surgery, yes.
But it wasn't. It
Okay.
wasn't like that because I had not studied about the cancer. We just knew it was cancer. And the only way you could know what kind of a cancer it is after they do a biopsy, which in my case is not possible until you open me up, you take a chunk of my liver
Yeah.
and know what you're really
Yes,
doing with
yes.
it. So our next stop was Delhi. And there is Medi-City through Medanta here. And we went to Medi-City and I walked into this Medi-City, and the way it sounds, Medi-City, I walked in an ocean of people who have all sorts of liver problems, from heart to liver. So that particular hospital was just for liver and heart. And I think that dawned on me to the extent of how much disease there is really out there and what it does to families. Coping with the ocean of people, you'd go in for one test, Betty, it's like a CT scan. You're seeing about 120 people lined up until your number comes.
Whoa.
I have had to sit in those lines until my turn comes. And it's just not a CT scan. There are several tests before you go into a surgery. And I'm sure medics would understand to the extent that I have, or rather my body, you know, after giving birth 6 weeks, you're
Yes.
pushing me through so many vigorous tests.
Right.
There's just enough of a pain threshold that my body could take at
Yeah,
that point in
yeah.
time. Finally, they decided there is a tumor. What we're going to do is we're going to resect it, meaning they're going to go into my liver and take that chunk out. So they went. I was not told how large my scar is going to be.
Okay.
I personally felt that Delhi sometimes is a very
Harsh?
harsh.
Yeah.
The doctors there were, I think it's because they're dealing with so many patients. There wasn't that one-to-one. I felt like a little experiment, you know, a little rat,
Yeah,
you know, in the
something.
lab.
Like, let's do this to
Yeah,
her. Let's cut
just,
her up.
yeah, and,
remove
and, you
this.
know, a next
Yeah.
patient, you know.
Yeah.
The lines were endless. The appointment lines were endless. You're rushing from one area in a mega hospital. It's crazy.
Okay.
It's sickening, and I wish nobody has to go through that. They did the resection. We came back home.
Did it help?
To come back home, I see a 6-week baby
Yeah.
who had grown up into about 4 months. So I was
Whoa.
away for her from 4
Whoa.
months.
Whoa.
And in the meantime,
must have been really
yes,
hard.
it was. And my grandmother, who was 75, looked after her that time. So hats
Whoa.
off to her. Yeah, hats off to her. So she was a grown, healthy baby doing really well. And it's after the resection, Betty, that I sort of did have a breakdown, because then I understood the magnitude of the disease I have.
Okay.
That's, I think, when you crumble, when you don't know who to face,
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
where to go. And I remember both my husband and me have had very difficult times in Delhi,
Yeah.
because you have no family over there. And as much as I'm Indian, I don't know anyone
don't know
there,
anyone, yeah.
you know? And that was a very, very painful journey for
Okay.
me. Yeah.
So,
Yes. Yeah.
so fast forward to the point where now you have to have the liver transplant.
Okay.
How
So what happened is, after they resected the tumor,
Yeah.
I went in after 4 months to have another PET scan.
Okay.
We don't have PET scans in Kenya. That pushes me to go back to India and see what is happening.
Right.
But in the meantime, what I did, in as much as it was a breaking point for me, that became my turning point. You realize you have nothing to hold on to. You realize that you're being told, with the kind of cancer you have, you probably have 2 years.
That you were told that?
Yes.
2 years.
So you're looking at, as a journalist, we have so many contacts. You're in the limelight as a news presenter.
Yeah.
Those contacts were not going to help me.
They don't help.
The limelight wasn't going
Doesn't
to help
help.
me. The money, perhaps, that we had is not going to bring back my life, really. So what do? You're pushed to a corner where nothing in the world is going to get you out, Betty. What are you going to do? You surrender. That's
So
what you
you
do.
surrender.
Yes, you have to, isn't it? Because I can't take away Betty's pain and wear it.
True.
Nobody is going to be able to do that. You can't understand my pain. That is the time when I really started reading a lot about raw food.
Raw food?
Raw food.
Okay.
And for about 4 months, I went raw. I was 70% raw. I only ate salads. I did a lot of vegetable juicing because I
Thinking that
read,
that's
yes, not thinking, because I did a lot of
Of
research. And there were a lot of people who were able to reverse their cancer. Not that I'm saying anyone should try this at home.
Yes.
But they, in certain miraculous cases, raw food helps the body. Cancer is
But
something.
it's not scientific.
It's not scientific.
Yeah.
It's absolutely not scientific.
Okay.
And because cancer thrives in a place where there is no oxygen in your body, you call that an acidic state in your body. So when you consume a lot of raw food, you're pumping your body with nutrition,
Okay.
oxygen, and you're trying to suffocate cancer in that sense.
Okay.
You probably be having nice fried chicken, and I'm here
Yeah.
stuffing my face with salad.
Yeah.
I did go back to work, regardless of the fact that I was broken. I just went berserk doing carrot juice, beet juice, celery. I would consume 15 kilos of carrots a week.
Whoa.
Yes, that's the
Okay.
amount of raw
Okay.
vegetable
That you-
juicing that I've
that you
done.
had to take.
Yes.
All right.
So the diet changed. I went back to work.
Okay.
And going back to work, meeting my colleagues pushed me through.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the transplant.
Okay.
Yeah.
So going back to India after 4 months, we didn't see one tumor. We saw 7.
Whoa.
Okay. To fast forward it, so what they have to do, In liver cancer, the chemotherapy is not how we know, how you have to lie down and you have like a couple of sessions.
Yes.
It doesn't work like that with the liver. It is very sophisticated treatment that we do not have here at home. They have to go through an angiography, meaning they would take like a portal vein from my groin area, push a couple of pipes right up to my liver, and try and tackle each and every tumor. That was pain for me every single time. And you're awake because the chemo has to be injected in each of those tumors. So the radiologists do that, hepatologists do that, but more so the radiologists do that. So that got over. I did a bit of chemo over there. They tried to get all the 7 tumors.
Right.
By burning a couple, I forget what the technical name is.
Okay.
I don't even want to remember it. You know? So we come back home, go back in another 2 months, but this time we go to Mumbai. And they discover that it's spread like crazy all over the liver. Fortunately or unfortunately, fortunately, it had not spread everywhere.
Okay.
So it was still confined to that. So this time the tumors were uncountable. There was no count.
There's no count. Too many.
Yes, because I became a case study for doctors in Mumbai because they were like, what on earth is happening? Because this is among the most aggressive forms of cancer that I had.
Right.
And I remember seeing like about 15 doctors just staring at my CT scan reports, you know? And that's when they decided we're going to pump her, and this is what I call in simple language, like they would make a concussion from Singapore that is like an atomic bomb. So it's...
Atomic bomb?
Yeah, like literally.
Yeah.
And I call it that because it's filled with radiation.
Okay.
And they decided to feed that into the liver. So it's a preparation, and this is something that really worked for me. I was able to buy 7 months because a transplant
To buy 7 months.
was inevitable for me. That
Okay.
was my cure. So we had to find a donor.
Okay.
We are not compatible. My husband and me are not compatible blood groups. So it forces you to register for what you call a swap transplant, whereby you have to have a similar couple in front of you. So I'm A positive. My husband, Mohammed, is B positive. I'll take your example. Betty and Betty's sister, perhaps, you're A positive and your sister is B positive. But your sister, B positive, also needs a liver because she has a condition.
Yes.
So she has a donor that happens to be my husband
Okay.
because you're the same blood
Yes.
group.
Yes.
And Betty and me are the same blood group.
Okay.
So what do? We swap.
Wow.
And this particular technique called a swap transplant has been able to save hundreds of lives out there.
Okay.
Because initially, your family is approached, Betty. And this is when you know that despite you living with a life-threatening disease, your family members would still pull back and say, I am not going for that.
Really?
Yes, my first cousin
That
who
happened
was...
to you?
Yes. My first cousin who was my ideal match as an O positive, you're a universal donor.
Yes.
She backed out. And it's very justified because it has to be a very willing thing to do for
But
somebody.
that must be really
course it's
hard.
painful.
Because this is your family. You'd expect that, you know, first of all, you
Yes.
look into the family.
Yes.
But she
Yes.
backed out.
She was backed out because she was not married, but she's elder to me.
Okay.
And this is painful, but I still love her because she said, I don't want to have a scar in my body.
Wow.
Yeah. So it didn't make sense to me, but I said, you know, I still love you regardless. And I believe that something better and more beautiful is going to be my way.
Okay.
Challenges kept on coming. Looking for a donor was not easy. Finance
Yes.
was one of my biggest issues.
That affects so
Chemos
many other
and
millions
radiation
of
were
people.
not costing me less than 2M in India. Let's not forget your flying cost, your staying cost, your waiting period cost. I didn't really have insurance to cover all that for me. Until then, I went broke. now was the time I had to go for a transplant. We had done enough chemo sessions, enough radiotherapy sessions, enough of the atomic bomb therapy sessions, as I call it. I forget the name, what it's called.
Atomic bomb is just fine.
Atomic bomb is just fine. It's like this radioactive concussion, and then they put it into your body.
Yeah.
So you know when you go into these radioactive places, they have this detector. It goes teet, 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 teet.
So that happens to you?
They come with it, just to make sure it's not anywhere else. and every time the guy comes closer to my liver, it goes teet, 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 teet. So I'm like, I'm filled with radioactive material, dude.
Okay. So, I mean, after all these processes,
we collected money.
Yeah.
And
were people receptive? Family, you know? Fine, you couldn't get
nobody, and this is what I say, when I decided to go to Come MFM, which is a sister company to K24 and Media Max,
right.
Nobody, not my colleagues, knew that I've walked into Come MA just to make an announcement that, and I remember I didn't have anything in my account.
Right.
For the first time in all these years, I had no money in my account. And I walked in, and Jogo Joroge had told me, come, in like 48 hours, he had sorted me with an M-Pesa account. And Jogo said, just come for the morning show.
All right.
I told nobody. Nobody. My husband looked at me like, are you crazy?
Yeah.
I mean, what are you thinking about?
Yes, yes.
And I just said, I don't know. I'm going to do what my heart says, and I'm going to give this my best shot.
So you went
And I went in there, Betty. And, I mean, because it's a vernacular station.
Yeah.
I just spoke a little in Swahili.
Swahili, the Swahili you know.
And the Swahili that I know, God, don't even embarrass me by, you know. And I spoke in English, and I told guys, I'm in trouble.
Okay.
You know.
All right.
I was not expecting to collect, or even the amount that we successfully collected.
And how much? That was 6.5?
6.5 million in 3 hours.
In 3 hours.
Without informing, without planning, without campaigning. But I had prayed, and I had prayed for a miracle for the longest time.
God loves you.
Yeah, he does.
All right.
He does to give you a second life. He does, yes.
Okay, so I want us to continue with the conversation in a few minutes. But, I mean, after the transplant, then you come back home. How long did it take before you...
the
everything
transplant
now came back?
Was about 18 hours.
Okay. 18 hours.
Yes.
Okay.
My recovery was a rough one. I'd lost my appetite.
So after the transplant doesn't mean that everything just works out together?
You're prone to a few complications. You have a very weak immune system.
Okay.
You're prone to picking up a lot of bugs, which I did. And I got an empyema, which means that I got an infection in my lung.
Okay.
And that made my recovery very difficult. But that was still secondary despite the pain that I underwent. I have a massive scar there. Yeah. But you can come back.
So we'll continue with this conversation, Anjlee, shortly. Please do keep, I'm sure there are very many tweets of people who want to know more, and you'll be talking to us more about, you know, liver cancer, you know, what should we watch out for? And that is not a death sentence. Look at you.
No,
you're
it's
here,
not.
inspiring so many of us. All right, if you're not inspired, I don't know. I don't know what will ever inspire you. So we'll be coming back in about 10 minutes with Anjlee Gadvi. For now, though, we take a break and we'll be back shortly.